Welcome to the Deep Dive by 5W Media.
Great to be diving in.
Today, we're plunging into a really intriguing aspect of the Sooner State, the ghosts of Oklahoma.
Yeah, Oklahoma's got some stories.
You, our listener, have provided just a fascinating range of materials, personal stories, historical investigations, local lore, even documented accounts of eerie encounters.
Quite a mix.
Our goal in this deep dive is to, explore these narratives, pull out the most compelling details, and really get a sense of why these spectral tales continue to hold our attention.
Right. We're not really here to debate what's real or not real.
Exactly. It's more about immersing ourselves in the stories themselves, the history they reflect, and, well, the reasons they seem to endure in our collective imagination.
Okay. So let's start unraveling this ghostly tapestry of Oklahoma.
Where should we begin? There's so much.
What immediately strikes me is how many of these accounts are just so intertwined with significant moments in Oklahoma's history. It's not just about, unexplained phenomena. Often, these alleged hauntings seem to echo very real and sometimes, frankly, traumatic events.
Exactly. And a particularly unsettling place to begin is the infamous Hex House at 10 East 21st Street in Tulsa.
Ah, yes, the Hex House.
One of the sources you shared unearthed this story through an old photograph, and the details are genuinely disturbing.
They really are. The ordeal of Carolyn Smith's two roommates back in 1944, Nell Willetta Horner and Virginia Evans. It's just a stark reminder of the darkness that can exist.
7 years.
For 7 years, they were subjected to utterly horrific conditions in the basement. It's almost impossible to comprehend that kind of cruelty, especially during wartime.
It really is. And the contrast, between their suffering and Smith's life upstairs is just jarring.
Yeah.
We learned she possessed a staggering amount of rationed goods, dozens of hats and gloves, hundreds of pairs of shoes.
Hundreds. It makes you wonder about the source of all that excess during those lean times, right?
Exactly.
And that very accumulation of rationed items actually triggered the initial scrutiny that eventually exposed the appalling situation Horner and Evans were living in.
Right. That's how it came out.
But their explanation for why they stayed, that takes it to another level. They believed Smith had hypnotized and hexed them.
Through her own, bizarre interpretation of Christian doctrine.
Yes, controlling them with the fear of eternal damnation. What does that tell us about the power of belief and manipulation? It's terrifying.
It's a chilling insight into psychological control, isn't it? And it looks like Smith's exploitative tendencies weren't just limited to her roommates.
No.
The significant sums of money sent by Virginia Evans' father, supposedly for his daughter's care, well, that raises serious questions.
Big questions. And couple that with the suspicious deaths of Smith's husband and a maid, both situations where she stood to gain financially through insurance.
It paints a truly sinister pattern.
This situation really highlights the vulnerability of individuals and how easily power can be abused. And it's also noteworthy that someone capable of such prolonged cruelty received what seems like a remarkably light punishment.
1 year. Just 1 year in jail for coercing false testimony.
It seems insufficient. And her subsequent disappearance, becoming known as the She's Svengali, it just amplifies the whole unsettling nature of this story. Why do you think acts like this sometimes fail to get the legal consequences we might expect?
That's a tough one. Maybe harder to prove the full extent, I don't know. And the physical location itself took on this morbid kind of fame.
Right, the house became a grim tourist attraction before they demolished it in '75.
Only to be replaced by a parking lot, and now an apartment complex stands there. It's almost as if the land itself carries a weight,
Well, interestingly, one of our sources expressed disappointment that later accounts seem to focus more on the supposed hauntings of the house, while completely overlooking the fates of Virginia and Willetta. What happened to them?
That's a really good point, and makes you consider our tendency to sometimes gravitate towards the sensational, the supernatural, maybe.
Perhaps at the expense of remembering the very real human suffering that occurred there. What does that say about what we choose to remember or focus on?
That's a really profound point. And it makes you wonder if the stories, the stories of lingering negative energy or a ghostly presence are in some way a subconscious acknowledgement of the immense trauma those women endured.
Like a way for the story to live on, even if distorted?
Could be. Could these stories be a way for us to grapple with that unresolved pain, even if we don't consciously connect it to the specific victims?
It's a compelling idea. Okay, shifting gears now to another deeply affecting event. The Girl Scout murders at Camp Scott in 1977.
Oh, yeah. That's a tragedy that still evokes strong emotions in Oklahoma.
Definitely. The thought of such violence impacting young lives in what should have been a safe, joyful environment, it's truly devastating.
Absolutely. Around 130 Girl Scouts arrived at Camp Scott near Locust Grove, ready for camp.
And three of them, Doris Denise Milner, Lori Farmer, and Michelle Goose, staying in tent number 7 in the Kiowa Camp Unit. They became the victims of this horrific crime. The impact on the community must have just been immense.
Unimaginable.
The details that emerged from that night are chilling. Following evening activities, the campers returned to their tents. Counselors did their checks.
Business as usual.
Right. But by the following morning, the unthinkable had happened. The discovery of a body near a trail revealed the terrible truth. 3 girls were missing from Tent 7.
What kind of fear must have just gripped that camp in those early morning hours? Just awful.
The discovery itself was heartbreaking. The girls were found a short distance from their tent.
How are they?
Lori and Michelle had been beaten to death, still in their sleeping bags. Denise was found on top of hers, her hands bound with duct tape. She had died by strangulation.
Oh my God. The crime scene must have been...
It yielded fragments of potential evidence, some blood, 2 distinct shoe prints, a flashlight, duct tape, some cord. It paints a picture of a brutal and chaotic act.
So, where did the investigation go?
This led investigators pretty quickly to Jean Leroy Hart. His history of escapes and violent offenses made him a prime suspect.
Okay.
But the evidence against him was ultimately circumstantial. It relied heavily on hair and fluid samples.
Which were later.
Later DNA analysis deemed them inconclusive. So he was actually acquitted in 1979, leaving this huge cloud of uncertainty over the case. How does a community even cope when something like that goes unsolved?
It creates a lasting sense of unease, doesn't it? Just
Yeah.
lingering questions. And the defense even proposed an alternate suspect.
They did, William A. Stevens. There were witnesses claiming to have seen him with scratches, maybe bloodstains on his shoes. But Stevens maintained his innocence, and he had an alibi supported by his employer. It just highlights how complex and often contradictory eyewitness testimony can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the legal battles didn't stop there. The Milner and Farmer families pursued a civil suit against the Girl Scouts, alleging negligence in camp security. Disturbingly, testimony in that civil trial brought to light some unsettling things that happened before the murders.
Like what?
Like stolen donuts from a counselor's tent and a threatening note left behind.
Wow. Despite that, the jury ruled.
The jury ultimately ruled in favor of the Girl Scouts. It really makes you wonder about the burden of responsibility in such, unimaginable situations.
And the pursuit of justice just kept going.
Relentless. Later DNA testing in '89, also inconclusive. And another individual, Carl Myers, reportedly confessed to a former prisoner before his own death.
But nothing concrete.
Nothing concrete. The case remains officially open. It's hard not to consider that such a profound tragedy with so many unanswered questions might leave a lingering sense of sadness, or even the feeling of unresolved spirits at that campsite. Could that lack of closure contribute to those kinds of feelings?
It seems very possible. A place forever marked by loss and uncertainty. Okay, let's turn our attention now to a more recent series of disturbing events. The murders of escorts in Lawton between 1999 and 2003.
Right. This is a stark and tragic reminder of the dangers faced by vulnerable individuals and communities.
It really is. The list of assumed victims is just heartbreaking. Jane Marie Chapton, Cassandra Lee Ramsey, Mandy Ann Raitt, Janice Marie Buono, Pamela Dawn Woodring, and possibly Tanya Marie Hook.
And the grim pattern that emerged was the discovery of their nude bodies, usually in bodies of water, often with evidence of drugs in their systems. It points to a specific kind of vulnerability, doesn't it?
Definitely. Investigators explored a potential link to a long-haul trucker.
Yeah, John Robert Williams, known as the I-40 killer. He was arrested for a similar murder down in Mississippi and was a suspect in other killings, including one in Oklahoma City, Jennifer Hyman.
But nothing definite for the Lawton cases.
No. Despite the similarities, conclusive evidence connecting him to the Lawton cases just never materialized. It raises questions about how effectively crimes against marginalized communities are investigated and solved sometimes.
It really highlights the immense challenges, the victim's circumstances maybe being transient, plus the transient nature of potential suspects like truckers. That creates huge obstacles for law enforcement.
Precisely. And despite the lack of a definitive resolution, the need for justice for these women remains so strong.
Absolutely.
It's easy to imagine that their stories, cut short so violently, perhaps without a full investigation ever possible, might leave a haunting echo in the Lawton area. Do you think unresolved injustices like these are more likely to fuel stories of lingering spirits?
It feels like they could. A sense of something unfinished. Okay, let's shift now to a truly bizarre and perplexing case. The death of Mildred Ann Newland Reynolds, New Alva, in
Oh,
1956.
this one is strange. The circumstances surrounding her car crash are just utterly baffling.
Right. The Highway Patrol report describes her car behaving incredibly erratically, veering, zigzagging in reverse, multiple impacts.
But what's truly strange is the scene inside the car. Reynolds was found lying across the front seat, her arms crossed.
Arms crossed.
Yes. And her burned shoes were found outside the vehicle. Plus, scorched buttons and shotgun shell bases found at the scene. It's just a collection of details that seems to defy any simple explanation.
And despite the apparent chaos of the crash, no other footprints or tire tracks were found?
None. Which is particularly odd given the scene wasn't immediately secured.
And the medical examiner?
Added to the confusion. There was carbonized material in her lungs, so she was alive during at least part of the fire.
Yeah.
But her body was too damaged to determine a definitive cause of death beyond the fire itself.
But there was a skull fracture?
Yes, but post-mortem attributed to the heat. It's a real puzzle.
What about the car itself?
The investigation didn't reveal any mechanical failures that would explain the driving or the fire, which they thought started at the rear. Replicating the intense heat was tricky until investigators experimented with brake fluid, which Reynolds had actually bought shortly before her death. It reached extremely high temperatures very rapidly.
But does that fully explain everything else? The crossed arms, the shoes outside?
Probably not. And despite all these findings, the coroner's jury leaned towards homicide.
So they looked at suspects.
They did. Her husband and nephew were questioned, but both had alibis. Some NGOC students, too.
Yeah.
But interestingly, there was no indication she was planning to meet anyone that day. It just feels like a dead end at every turn.
So how did it get classified officially?
The OSBI later classified her death as an accident. Their theory, a sudden vertigo attack, even though she had no prior diagnosis.
That explanation seems inadequate, doesn't it, given all the bizarre details?
It does. And as you mentioned, persistent rumors about her husband's involvement have lingered for decades, even though his own family always stood by him. The case remains unsolved.
And there are eerie similarities to another unexplained car fire death years later.
Yes, in 1986. It just leaves you with this strong sense of an unresolved tragedy. Could such a mysterious death contribute to a sense of unease in the area, maybe manifesting as local legends or feelings of a lingering presence?
It certainly could, that feeling of something not quite right. Okay, from one perplexing case to another, let's delve into the horrific Freeman family murders and the disappearance of Ashley Freeman and Laura Bible in 1999.
Ah, yes. The Welch case. This one is just a truly heartbreaking example of enduring loss and unanswered questions.
The discovery of Kathy and Danny Freeman's remains in their burned-out home, both shot in the head, that was a devastating start to a long, agonizing ordeal.
And initially, there was that glimmer of hope, or maybe speculation, that their daughter Ashley and her friend Laura Bible might have just run away.
Even though Danny's car was still there.
Exactly. That detail always struck me as particularly significant. Seems unlikely they'd leave without it.
Tragically, the girls were never found, despite countless searches over the years.
And those years were filled with false leads, including recanted confessions from convicted killers like Tommy Lensells and Jeremy Jones. The emotional toll on the families? Unimaginable. Enduring the murders and the ongoing uncertainty about the girls.
And there was another layer of darkness, too, right? Rumors about local law enforcement?
Yes, persistent rumors of local police involvement, apparently stemming from a prior conflict with the Freeman family. While never substantiated, those rumors fueled distrust and just complicated the search for truth.
But years later, there was finally a breakthrough.
Finally. In 2018, Ronnie Dean Busick was arrested and eventually pled guilty to the murders of all 4 victims: Danny, Kathy, Ashley, and Laura.
All 4. So he admitted killing the girls, too.
Yes, along with identifying 2 deceased accomplices, Warren Phillip Welch and David Pennington.
Did that bring any closure? Or just raise more questions about where the girls were?
More questions, really.
Yeah.
The details that emerged were chilling. Witnesses testified that these men had bragged about the crimes, claiming they'd held the girls for several days.
Oh, God.
Before ultimately disposing of their bodies in a pit or a mine shaft near Pitcher, Oklahoma.
Pitcher, the old mining town. Did they search there based on his info?
They did extensive searches, but nothing was ever found.
So
he received a 15-year sentence as part of a plea deal, partly for his cooperation, but the actual fate of Ashley and Laura remains unknown.
That enduring hope of finding them, coupled with the horrific nature of the crime. It just casts such a long shadow over that region. It's difficult not to imagine that the unresolved nature of the girl's disappearance might contribute to a sense of lingering spirits or just a heavy atmosphere there.
It really speaks to our human need for resolution, for answers in the face of such tragedy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. Moving now to another dark chapter in Oklahoma's history, let's discuss the tragic workplace shooting at the Edmond Post Office in 1986.
Right, an event that had such a profound impact, it even became part of our common language.
Sadly, yes. The events of August 20, 1986 were just horrific. Patrick Sherrill, a relief carrier.
He had been reprimanded the day before, right?
Yes. He returned to the post office with firearms and opened fire, tragically murdering 14 people before taking his own life.
His status as a relief carrier, maybe lacking the stability of permanent routes. It's thought that might have contributed to his state of mind. It makes you consider the pressures and vulnerabilities within the workplace back then.
A memorial was erected in 1989 to honor the victims. It's a stark reminder of the lives lost and the devastating impact on the Edmond community.
And as you said, this event is widely credited with the origin of the phrase going postal, reflecting the shock and, well, the concern over increasing instances of workplace violence during that era.
It's difficult to imagine that such an intensely traumatic event wouldn't leave some kind of residual emotional energy or just a palpable sense of tragedy at that location. Could places where such intense emotions and loss occur be more prone to stories of haunting?
It's a thought many people have, absolutely. Now let's turn to a period of sustained terror and injustice in Oklahoma's history, the Osage murders of the 1920s.
Killers of the Flower Moon.
Exactly. This is a truly appalling chapter where the Osage Nation, who had become incredibly wealthy due to oil found on their land,
Were systematically targeted and murdered. The scale of this violence is almost unbelievable.
it really is. The estimated death toll ranges from at least 60, maybe up to hundreds more, violent or suspicious deaths.
Just staggering. The initial murders of Anna Brown, Henry Roan, the bombing of Bill and Rita Smith's home, those were just the beginning of this widespread campaign of terror and greed.
And at the center of this horrific scheme was William K. Hale.
A prominent local figure.
Very. He masterminded this plan involving his nephew, Ernest Burkhart, marrying Molly Kyle, a full-blooded Osage woman.
All to inherit her head rights? The oil wealth.
Precisely. It was a cold, calculated plot to exploit and profit from the Osage people. Just pure greed.
And the subsequent deaths. Molly's mother, Lizzie Q. Kyle, other family members. Hale often directly or indirectly benefited financially.
It reveals the ruthless and systematic nature of this conspiracy. It's just a stark illustration of how greed and prejudice can lead to unspeakable acts. What does this period tell us about the treatment of Native American communities in American history? It's brutal.
It reviews a deeply troubling history of exploitation and the violation of indigenous rights. The arrival of the Bureau of Investigation, the precursor to the FBI, in 1925, that finally started to unravel things.
Yes, spurred on by the relentless efforts of people like Sheriff James Monroe Pyle, they finally began to piece together the conspiracy.
And there were convictions.
There were. Ernest Burkhart, William Hale, and John Ramsey were convicted. But their eventual paroling, and Ernest even got a pardon later. It serves as a stark reminder of the complexities and limitations of justice back then.
Do you think true justice was ever really served, given the sheer scale of the loss and suffering?
It's hard to say it was complete justice. The passage of a federal law in 1925 aimed at preventing non-Osages from inheriting head rights of those with more than half Osage blood was a direct consequence.
A necessary change, but too late for many.
Absolutely. The immense scale of this tragedy makes it highly probable that there is lingering trauma, a sense of profound spiritual unrest connected to these grave injustices within the Osage Nation. Could the land itself be seen as holding the echoes of this violence?
It's a powerful way to think about it. Okay, let's maybe shift our focus a bit now to some of the more folkloric aspects of Oklahoma's spectral landscape.
The urban legends.
Right. These stories, while maybe not rooted in specific documented tragedies like the ones we've discussed, still offer insights into our collective fears and fascinations with the unknown.
Absolutely. The Only in Your State article highlights some classic Oklahoma spooky tales. You've got the ever-elusive Bigfoot sightings down in southeastern Oklahoma.
Always popular.
And the poignant legend of the Bobby Creek Crybaby Bridge, the mother who tragically lost her baby in a storm, often linked to June 13, 1924. These stories often tap into very primal fears and emotions, don't they? Loss, grief.
They do. And as we discussed earlier, the Tulsa Hex House also features prominently as an urban legend, further solidifying its place in the state's ghostly narratives.
Right, its infamy lives on. We also have the intriguing mystery of Magnetic Hill down in Springer.
Where cars seem to roll uphill.
Exactly. With various explanations, unusual magnetic forces, maybe the spirits of car crash victims pulling vehicles uphill. What is it about unexplained phenomena like that that captures our imagination so strongly?
It's the challenge to our understanding of the world, isn't it? The possibility of something beyond the ordinary.
Then there are the stories surrounding the Purple Church near Spencer, with tales of satanic markings and black magic rituals.
And the Shaman's Portal in Beaver Sands, Oklahoma's Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, with reported disappearances potentially linked to a supposed UFO crash site. These legends often blend local folklore with broader cultural anxieties about, cults or the unexplained.
And let's not forget the legend of devil worship and eerie sensations associated with the now demolished Murdoch's mansion in Tulsa.
Right. And the enduring mystery of the Hornet spook light on the Oklahoma-Missouri border.
The light that predates cars.
That's the one, a phenomenon that's been reported for well over a century. These urban legends, even if not factual in a literal sense, really serve as cultural expressions of our anxieties, our curiosities, and maybe even distorted echoes of real historical events or fears.
Which leads us nicely to specific locations across Oklahoma that are reputed to be haunted, places you can actually visit or at least know the stories of.
TravelOK.com and other sources point to several spots where history and alleged paranormal activity seem to intertwine, offering a tangible link to these ghostly tales.
Guthrie seems like a hot spot.
Guthrie, with its rich history as an early capital, seems particularly steeped in spectral lore. The Stone Lion Inn, for instance.
What's the story there?
Numerous stories. Sounds of a child's footsteps, a male apparition, the distinct smell of cigar smoke. Now, the specific tale of Augusta Houghton, who supposedly died there, has been debunked. But the building was a funeral home for many years. That history likely contributes to the ongoing reports. It makes you wonder how the functions a building serves might influence the kinds of stories that emerge about it.
Definitely. And the Bluebell Saloon in Guthrie.
Another one with a colorful, perhaps spectral past. Tales of Miss Lizzie, the former madam, and her ladies, apparitions sighted in the basement, and even local legends of secret underground tunnels connecting saloons and brothels back in the day.
Wow. And the Santa Fe Depot in Guthrie.
Also has its ghostly resident, a spectral lady in Victorian attire. Often speculated to be Miss Brill Harvey, forever waiting for a train that may never come. These stories often romanticize or personalize the past, giving it a human face, even a ghostly one.
And the Pollard Theater.
Another Guthrie location with reported paranormal activity. Figures seen on the catwalk, a disgruntled gentleman appearing in a mirror. Probably remnants of its days as a vaudeville house and early movie theater.
Moving to Oklahoma City, the Skirvin Hotel is probably the most famous haunted spot.
Absolutely. The enduring legend of Effie the maid, who supposedly had an affair with the owner and jumped from a window with her baby.
Though the historical accuracy of that specific story is debated.
Right. But there are numerous accounts from guests, including some pretty well-known NBA players staying there for games, who've reported unexplained occurrences, strange noises, doors opening and closing, a feeling of being watched.
What is it about hotels, you think? With their constant flow of people, dramatic events maybe happening over the years, that makes them such fertile ground for ghost stories?
That's a great question. Maybe it's the anonymity, the transient nature, the sheer volume of human emotion that passes through.
Could be. Then you have places like the Concho Indian Boarding School.
A place with a very tragic history, forced assimilation of Native American children. That history understandably leads to numerous reports of ghosts, shadow figures, unsettling activity. It's a powerful reminder that places where great suffering occurred often become associated with these kinds of stories.
Yeah, the weight of history there is immense.
And finally, the old buildings at Fort Sill have their share of ghost stories too, particularly Building 463, which once served as a hospital morgue.
Okay, that makes sense.
Night shift workers there have reported documented experiences of strange noises, disembodied voices, and just a palpable sense of a presence. These locations often become touchstones for our collective memory of past events, both ordinary and tragic, and sometimes those memories are said to manifest in spectral ways.
It certainly seems there's a continued fascination with these phenomena. We found references to Oklahoma Paranormal Research and Investigations, OKPRI.
Right, they actively investigate alleged hauntings across the state. They even have a book, Spirits Among Us, documenting some of their findings.
It just shows that the interest in the ghosts of Oklahoma is very much alive and well today. People are still looking, still wondering.
Indeed. It reflects our enduring human curiosity about the mysteries that lie just beyond our everyday understanding, and our ongoing attempts to connect with the stories and histories that shape our communities.
Well, Oklahoma's history, rich with both triumphs and, as we've seen, profound tragedies, seems to have woven this incredible tapestry of ghostly tales that continue to intrigue and sometimes, unnerve us. From the echoes of mistreated souls like those in the Hex House, to the lingering sadness of unsolved crimes like Camp Scott or the Lawton murders, and just the energy of places touched by significant, often traumatic events.
Like Edmond or the Osage lands?
Exactly. These stories offer a glimpse into the state's past, and perhaps maybe something beyond our everyday understanding.
A different way of remembering, perhaps.
If you like what you are hearing from us, please subscribe. Also, if you would like and share this video, it helps us tremendously. It means so much to us.
It really does.
Please also leave a comment. We want to know what you think and value ideas you might have for future deep dives.
We do read them.
Thanks for tuning in.